Welcome back. Actually, before I had finished before, I should have told you about this. It's just a quick remark of a very different approach that Vladimir Putin took from the first day in office with oligarchs. And actually, he realized soon that they were potentially more powerful than him. And actually, but he also realized something else that they were, and actually, his quote, as popular as a man idly burning bundles of 50 pounds outside of an orphanage. And this is what he took advantage of. He started taking away power from oligarchs from day one, realizing that they were not popular at all. And actually, his popularity rate could actually benefit from doing so. And actually, that will play in his favor also in terms of power. This being said, we're going to be moving to post-Cold War relations. And actually, quite shockingly, the first approach after the transition, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, after Russian Federation being an independent state, the first point, the relation actually was defined by Andrei Kosyev, uh, for the foreign affairs minister of the Russian Federation. Actually, he had been in that position before when the Russian Federation was part of the Soviet Union. He defined the relation with the US and the US as a natural ally of Russia. And this is absolutely shocking because this is a completely changed. This completely changed the dynamics of the Cold War. And we can see both Yeltsin and President Bush there in a picture in 1992, celebrating the transition of Russia to being a democratic capitalist country. However, this fairy tale did not last that long. I mean, this was a very early stage when it was considered in the US as a natural ally of Russia. However, in that same summer, we moved towards a balance between West and East, which is interesting. I mean, by the end of the day, it does not identify the West as an enemy of Russia anymore. And obviously, this plays a great benefits dividends to both sides. However, a series of events started changing this image for Russia, from moving a natural ally to a balance to actually NATO expanding. And actually, if NATO had lost its stand because they were not confronting the Soviet Union anymore, how do you imagine Russia perceived the expansion you see in the map, particularly in 1990 already? I mean, this is very obvious, but East Germany joined NATO as it joined West Germany as one single country. But more importantly, in 1999, you can see like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and also Hungary joined NATO. And this was already problematic, and even more problematic, 2004, NATO expanded to Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, actually it was Czech Republic, not Czechoslovakia, Slovakia, and the Baltic republics. And this was a confrontational message towards Russia. I mean, by the end of the day, Russia was losing its satellite, its area of influence in Europe, and actually the West was taking that area of influence. This was actually even increased with the Yugoslavian wars, the Yugoslav wars, and the role the West was taking. By the end of the day, Yugoslavia, even though it was a bit of a sui generis, it was a kind of an outsider within the communist countries of the Warsaw Pact. Even though so, but the end of the day, it was the West intervening in a former communist country, even though it was obviously a whole new world. But the West trying to be influential in that area, and obviously the position of the European Union and the European countries was highly criticized from Moscow. By the end of the day, Moscow eventually participated in these missions in the peacekeeping forces. However, it did not have the lead, and it was confronting the Western countries. Another issue on regard with the former Yugoslavian republics, it had to do with Kosovo. Actually, Russia has not recognized Kosovo as an independent country, and by the end of the day, that's another attempt of remaining influential with Serbia and supporting Serbian government and trying to keep Serbia outside of the influence of the European Union. And this obviously it's another conflict. By the end of the day, this helps escalating the tension between the West and Russia. Another issue that is being obviously controversial, it has to do with Ukraine invasion. We know that Russia has been intervening in Ukrainian politics. oh my God, this is Grushenko, and how he was poisoned. You can see the difference between before and after being poisoned. And he was a candidate, former Prime Minister of Ukraine, and candidate. And by the end, they also attempted to legitimize him. But the whole events leading to the Ukrainian invasion start in 2010. In 2010, actually, pro-Russian parties win the election, but you can see how Ukraine is not a unitarian country in that sense. We can see how the east of the country is pro-Russian, and they voted for Yanukovych, and the east of the country and the west, sorry, of the country, more pro-European, more integration in the West, voted for Tymoshenko at that time, a woman. However, as I said, Yanukovych won the elections. However, later in 2013, because of the measures the government was taking and how it was kind of freezing the negotiations to join NATO and also to sign a preferential trade agreement with the European Union, people went out on the streets in what we know as a Euromaidan. People went out demonstrating in the streets, actually forcing the government to fall. They forced the fall of the government. Tymoshenko resigned, and de facto a temporary government took office, more pro-European government. And obviously, these demonstrations took place in Kyiv. And obviously, we know that Kyiv is in the west, so it's in the pro-European area of the country. However, as we saw in the previous slide, the country was divided. And by the end of the day, we have a part of the country that supports pro-Russian politicians, so to say. And obviously, this decision did not make Moscow happy whatsoever. And the response of Moscow, we know what it was. It was actually the annexation of Crimea. You know, Crimea is this region over here, and actually highly pro-Russian. Actually, people did not resist the invasion there, and actually that resulted in also, well, we see how Putin signed the agreement with the regional government of Crimea becoming part of Russia. And actually the argument Vladimir Putin used was actually, if Crimea wants to become, the people of Crimea wants to become independent and they want to separate from Ukraine and become part of the Russian Federation, why wouldn't they be able if people in Kosovo did so? And actually, that's quite interesting how he's using international law and how the experience of Kosovo, that is, actually, we can discuss whether Kosovo becoming independent and separating from Serbia fulfills international law or not, or breaks international law, and so is the case from Crimea. And in this case, obviously, it was with the support of the Russian military. And after Crimea was annexed, this started also war in Donbass. Donbass is the region that we saw to the very east, actually even more pro-Russian than Crimea in the elections of 2010. And this is a conflict that obviously was between Russia and Ukraine forces. However, Russia never really recognized being part of that war, even though de facto it was clear there was very little doubt it was. This conflict escalated even more when a Malaysian airliner with many Dutch passengers, because it was a flight from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur, was shot down by a Russian missile. When by the end of the day, it was a confusion. They thought it was a Ukrainian fighter, and by the end of the day, it was a commercial airliner. And obviously, this made it more. It made the conflict also important for the West. By the end of the day, it was West citizens that had to just suffer the consequences of this conflict. What were the international reactions with Russia? Were economic sanctions. And actually, the economic sanctions were harmful for Russia. We can see how the GDP of Russia, even though it was already decelerating, decreased in 2015 as a result of the 2014 sanctions. However, Russia did not stay put. By the end of the day, Russia threatened European countries with gas supply. We know that actually countries as Poland or Germany are highly dependent on the supply of natural gas of Russia. And obviously with a cold winter, that can be really hard to resist, whatever blackmailing Russia is doing. And we see how Russia also, remember this was 2014, also got involved in other ways in our system. So to say, I mean, and they understood that they could use soft power, and actually they could interfere in elections. And this was the case by the end of the day. I mean, the Mueller report, I mean, I'm sure that you know as much as about this as I do. By the end of the day, recognized that the Russian government interfered in 2016 presidential election, and that's an absolute fact. And actually that has to do also, and this is a very interesting debate that we don't have time here, or we cannot really have it, about the what defense mechanisms do our democracies have, because this is not something that only happened in the US, but it is something actually the European Parliament was very afraid in 2019 last year elections. And they could intervene through several channels. Obviously social media is one of them, but I think we mentioned in class the importance of RT, Russian television, and actually how this news outlet has offices in every European country, and how they produce news that are beneficial, positive towards Russia. This being said, this was about it for today's class. We'll continue Wednesday. If you have any question, do not hesitate on sending me an email, guys. So see you. Have a nice day. Bye.